Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really foundational paper, one that fundamentally shifted how we think about a huge global resource system, freshwater recreational fisheries. Yeah, this isn't just, a casual weekend activity we're talking about managing. It's much bigger. The paper is Understanding and Managing Freshwater Recreational Fisheries as Complex, Adaptive, Social-Ecological Systems. The lead author is Arlinghaus, working with a big international team. So let's start with the basics. Why focus so intensely on recreational fishing? I mean, what's the scale here?
Oh, the scale is enormous, astronomical, really, especially when you look at industrialized countries, North America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand.
Right.
In many of those places, recreational fishing has actually become the dominant way we use inland wild fish stocks.
That's a huge shift, isn't it, from, say, commercial or subsistence fishing?
Exactly. It's a massive change. And economically, socially, it's a powerhouse, but often kind of under the radar.
How big are we talking?
Well, estimates range, but somewhere between 220 million and maybe even 700 million recreational fishers worldwide.
Wow. And that activity, it generates billions, truly billions of dollars. Supports countless jobs, tackle shops, guides, boat rentals, you name it.
Okay, so it's big business. But why the call for this complex systems approach? What are the impacts?
That's the core issue the paper tackles. Recreational fishing has significant impacts, ecological certainly on fish stocks.
Like overfishing.
Yes, but also economic impacts, social conflicts between different user groups, and even evolutionary impacts. Things like selectively removing the largest fish can actually change the genetics of fish stocks over time.
So it really demands serious, dedicated management.
Absolutely. We can't just look at fish numbers in isolation. The paper argues that it's a strongly coupled system. You've got people and nature interacting in complex ways.
And that's where this idea of moving beyond a purely fish-focused, or as they call it, piscicentric view comes in.
Precisely. The argument is, if you want to manage these systems sustainably, you have to see them for what they are. Complex, adaptive, social-ecological systems. SS for short. Okay. Complex adaptive systems, or CAS. What makes a fishery fit that description?
The paper highlights three key characteristics. First, there's immense diversity and individuality within the system.
Meaning the anglers themselves.
Exactly. Anglers aren't a single monolithic group. They vary hugely: demographics, skill levels, what they value, their beliefs about conservation, their preferences.
Right, some just want to relax by the water, others are purely after a trophy fish.
Precisely. And that heterogeneity makes predicting behavior or designing effective regulations really challenging. What works for one group might totally alienate another.
Okay, diversity is one. What's the second characteristic?
The second is that localized microscale interactions lead to macroscale patterns.
So individual actions adding up to something bigger.
Yes, think about it. Each angler makes individual choices: where to fish, what techniques to use, whether to keep or release a fish. Those are microscale decisions. But when you aggregate thousands of those individual decisions across a landscape, you get large-scale results, like patterns of fishing effort distribution across lakes, or even region-wide overharvesting if everyone targets the same vulnerable spots.
Makes sense. And the third trait?
This one's really interesting. Autonomous, self-organized processes. The system is constantly adjusting itself, often without direct top-down control.
How does that work?
Well, think about fishing quality. If catch rates plummet in one area, or if new regulations make fishing less enjoyable for some.
People might stop buying licenses. Or maybe they just fish somewhere else.
Exactly. Anglers make autonomous choices, renew the license, switch locations, maybe take up golfing instead. This constant churn, this self-selection and self-organization shapes who is actually participating in the fishery over time.
So it's not just a bunch of separate lakes and anglers. It's all interconnected. And there are hierarchies involved too, right? The paper mentions something called panarchy.
Yeah, panarchy. It sounds a bit academic, I know.
It does. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. It's essentially a way to visualize how these systems are organized in nested levels and how influences travel up and down those levels. Think of it like layers.
Okay.
You have national or state level agencies setting broad policies at a high level.
Yeah.
Those policies influence local angling clubs or regional management bodies.
Right, the middle layer.
And those, in turn, affect the behavior of individual anglers right down at the local water body level. But, and this is crucial, the outcomes at that local level, like, say, a fish stock collapse.
Feedback up the chain.
Precisely. It forces the higher level policymakers to respond, maybe change the rules. So a local fishery isn't an island. It's embedded in bigger systems, land use, water management, even climate change.
And those feedback loops.
Hmm.
That must be where the real management headaches come in, especially with complexity. The paper talks a lot about nonlinearity.
Absolutely. Nonlinearity is probably the biggest challenge. It leads to uncertainty, unpredictability, and even the potential for sudden, drastic changes, regime shifts.
Now, the paper makes a distinction here, doesn't it, between different kinds of nonlinearity.
Yes, a really important one. There's nonlinearity at the variable level. This is, let's say, difficult, but maybe manageable.
Like what?
Like the relationship between the number of adult fish, the stock size, and how many young fish survive. Or how angler satisfaction doesn't just increase linearly with catch rates, there are thresholds.
Okay, those are complex relationships, but maybe you can quantify them with enough data.
Theoretically, yes, they're mathematically messy, but potentially predictable if you understand the mechanism. The real complexity, the dangerous kind, is nonlinearity at the system level.
What does that mean?
It means the actual rules of how things interact can change as the system itself evolves. History matters. What happened before constrains what can happen next. They call this path dependency.
So the system's past behavior limits its future possibilities, leading to outcomes you just couldn't foresee.
Exactly. Emergent properties that are genuinely surprising. And this isn't just theoretical. They provide real-world examples.
Like the case study about stocking in Germany.
Right. The German stocking example highlights a phenomenon called lock-in. It's not that stocking is inherently bad, but the system became rigidly dependent on it.
How did that happen?
Well, in many areas, local angling clubs manage the stocking, often independently, without much external oversight or, crucially, independent monitoring of whether it's actually working ecologically.
Okay.
There's often a strong perception, maybe rooted in past habitat degradation, that the water bodies need stocking to provide good fishing. This becomes a shared belief within the club.
And this belief drives behavior.
Strongly. Member satisfaction is often tied to catch rates, and people exhibit strong loss aversion. They're much more afraid of losing the current catch rates by stopping stocking than they are motivated by the potential gains of alternative management, even if stocking isn't effective.
So it feels safer to just keep stocking, even without proof.
Yes. Add the economic interests of hatcheries supplying the fish, and you get this powerful self-reinforcing feedback loop. The system gets locked in to stocking as the primary solution, resisting change even if ecological evidence suggests it's unnecessary or harmful.
That's fascinating. Human psychology basically traps the management system.
It really shows how social dynamics can override ecological reality. And it's not just about gradual lock-ins. You can also have sudden social shifts.
Like the other example they mentioned about fish welfare.
Yes, in Germany and Switzerland. Over time, societal values around animal welfare shifted, placing a higher ethical importance on individual fish.
Okay.
This led relatively quickly to a stable new social state, a regime shift, where practices like voluntary catch and release or fishing competitions based purely on catch numbers were made illegal. The underlying assumption became that fishing purely for fun or sport was morally questionable.
And that sudden shift in values directly impacts management options.
Dramatically. For instance, if a manager wants to use slot limits rules, protecting fish within a certain size range to conserve large breeders, that often relies heavily on anglers practicing catch and release.
But if catch and release is illegal or strongly frowned upon,
then that management tool is basically off the table. The social shift constrains the ecological management possibilities.
and there's another feedback trap they mentioned, something called hyperstability.
Right, hyperstability. This is a really insidious one for managers. It's when catch rates, like fish caught per hour, remain stable or even increase slightly.
Well, it sounds good.
It looks good on the surface, but it happens while the actual underlying fish population is declining, sometimes drastically.
How does that happen?
It's often due to what's called inverse density-dependent catchability. As the overall fish numbers drop, the remaining fish often congregate in the best remaining habitats. Anglers, being smart, also concentrate their effort in those same spots.
So their efficiency goes up even as the total number of fish goes down.
Exactly. They keep catching fish effectively in those hotspots, masking the overall decline across the entire system. Catches look fine, data seems stable, right up until a population crashes.
That's incredibly dangerous. It hides the problem until it's potentially too late.
It's a classic symptom of complex system behavior that simple monitoring can miss.
Okay, so given all this complexity, these feedback loops, the unpredictability, how does the paper suggest we actually manage these systems? They draw on the Ostrom framework, right?
Yes, heavily. Eleanor Ostrom's work on governing the commons and social ecological systems is foundational here. The paper presents two interconnected frameworks based on that thinking.
What's the first one?
The first is the analytical social-ecological framework. Its purpose is purely understanding, diagnosing the system. It forces you to look holistically.
How does it structure that?
It uses 6 main first-tier categories to make sure you consider all the interacting parts.
Okay, what are they?
First, the actors. That's the anglers, the managers, the policymakers, anyone involved, including their characteristics, beliefs, behaviors.
All right, the human element.
Then, the governance system, GS, the rules, regulations, institutions, property rights, and the organizations like agencies or clubs that implement them.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Rules and people. What about the eco part?
That's next. You have the resource unit, RU, the thing being used, which is typically the individual fish being caught. It's characterized by rivalry. One person catching it means another can't.
Okay, the fish itself.
And then the resource system, RS, the broader ecosystem providing those units. So the lake, the river, the fish population as a whole, its habitat.
Got it. Actors, governance, resource unit, resource system. What else?
Then you have the dynamic parts. Interactions, these are the actions happening within the system. Harvesting fish, but also monitoring, lobbying politicians, anglers self-organizing into clubs, enforcing rules.
Only activities.
And finally, you measure the outcomes. This includes both social performance, like angler satisfaction, fairness, equity and ecological performance, sustainability, biodiversity, fish stock health.
So that first framework is like a comprehensive checklist, a diagnostic tool to map out all the pieces and how they connect or disconnect.
Exactly. It helps identify the crucial links and feedbacks, especially those between the social side, actors, governance, and the ecological side, RU, RS, which ultimately drive the outcomes. It shows you where the problems might lie.
Okay, so Framework 1 helps us understand the system's structure and potential problems. But how do we actually act? What's the practical management approach?
That leads to the second framework, the operational management framework. This one is all about guiding action, and the core principle here is adaptive management, or AM.
Adaptive management, we hear that term a lot.
Yes, and it's crucial here precisely because of the complexity and uncertainty we've been discussing. If you can't perfectly predict outcomes, you need a way to manage that learns and adjusts as you go. AM is nested within broader ideas like the precautionary approach, acting cautiously when uncertainty is high.
And the paper outlines different kinds of adaptive management.
It does. It distinguishes between passive adaptive management, PAM, and active adaptive management, AAM.
What's the difference?
Passive AM is essentially learning by doing, but in a somewhat reactive way. You implement a management strategy, say a new size limit, and then you monitor the outcomes and evaluate if it worked. It's retrospective.
So looking in the rearview mirror, more or less.
Kind of, yes. It's useful and less demanding than the alternative. But active AM is much more powerful, though also more difficult.
How so?
Active AM involves deliberately designing management actions as experiments. You intentionally test different policy options or interventions specifically to reduce critical uncertainties about how the system works.
So you might try different regulations on similar lakes and compare the results.
Exactly. You'd set up replicated controlled management experiments out in the real world. It's about purposeful, structured learning to improve future decisions. It requires more involvement, more coordination, but the potential payoff in understanding is huge.
Okay, so the overall message seems to be managing these fisheries requires moving beyond simple fish counts or single-discipline approaches.
Absolutely. It demands a shift towards genuine inter- and transdisciplinary work, where social scientists, ecologists, economists, and managers collaborate closely, and focusing on flexible, adaptive governance rather than rigid, top-down command and control.
And the paper suggests specific areas to focus on to build resilience.
Yeah.
Right. To keep the system sustainable even when facing shocks.
Yes, 3 key areas for managing resilience.
What's the first?
First, manage feedbacks and processes. Don't just monitor the state of the resource, like fish biomass. Actively focus on identifying and managing those potentially perverse feedback loops. We discussed the stocking lock-in, hyperstability. Sometimes managing the human reaction or the institutional inertia is more critical than directly managing the fish.
Okay, focus on the dynamics, not just the state. What's second?
Second, manage critical slow variables. Pay close attention to those elements of the system that change very slowly but set the underlying conditions. Like the quality and quantity of spawning habitat, the genetic diversity of fish stocks, deeply held human values and beliefs, or the fundamental structure of management institutions.
And why are they critical?
Because they often get ignored in the short-term focus of management. But if these slow variables degrade past a certain threshold, like losing most critical habitat or a fundamental shift in public values, they can trigger sudden, dramatic, and often irreversible collapses into undesirable states. They define the system's resilience boundary.
Got it. Slow variables set the stage for potential collapse. And the third area.
Third, manage and maintain diversity. Diversity in all its forms is the raw material for resilience and adaptation. It provides options.
You mean biological diversity?
Yes, ecological diversity is key genetic diversity within stocks, a healthy mix of fish ages and sizes, but also, crucially, social and institutional diversity.
What does social or institutional diversity look like in management?
It means avoiding the trap of one-size-fits-all regulations across entire regions or countries. Remember the heterogeneity. Different lakes have different ecological characteristics, different angling pressures, different social contexts. So allowing for a diversity of management approaches across a landscape, sometimes called polycentric governance, where you have different rules or strategies in different places, perhaps managed by different bodies, makes the overall system more robust. If one approach fails in one area due to some unforeseen shock, others might still succeed. It's like having a diversified investment portfolio.
The portfolio effect for fisheries management.
Precisely. Homogenization, making everything the same, makes the whole system brittle.
So what are the big limitations or next steps identified in the paper?
Well, the main one is that while the conceptual framework is powerful, many of these ideas still need rigorous empirical testing. We need more integrated social-ecological modeling efforts.
And more real-world experiments.
Yes, more practical applications of active adaptive management. And this kind of work requires larger, more integrated teams, bringing together different scientific disciplines and, importantly, stakeholders like angler groups and managers than has often been typical in fisheries science.
So wrapping up, the big takeaway from the Arlinghaus paper is?
I think it's that managing recreational fisheries isn't primarily about managing fish. It's about managing complexity. It's about managing people, their interactions, and the often surprising nonlinear feedbacks between people and the ecosystems they use. Embracing that complexity, using adaptive approaches, that's the path to sustainability.
That really reframes the whole challenge. So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. If diversity in the ecosystem, in angler types, and in management rules is indeed key to resilience, where in your own local environment, maybe related to fisheries or maybe something else, do you see homogenization? Where might making everything the same, ecologically or socially, actually be making the system more fragile? Something to ponder. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.